Everyone. I am Kalila Baldwin, and I would like to welcome you all to How Can Retailers Implement Real-Time Data Centricity and Reap the Benefits Boardroom, presented by Exasol and VAD Technologies. We are honored to have so many thought leaders in the room today, and we encourage everyone to actively participate, as this will be an interactive discussion. So please share all your questions and comments with us. Some housekeeping before we begin. We have placed everyone on mute in order to limit background noise. We will be taking questions and comments after each session, which is when you may ask a question using the raise your hand feature found by clicking on the participants tab at the bottom of your screen. You will then be unmuted to ask your question. Alternatively, please use the chat box to interact with all of the other event attendees. We will now officially begin with an introduction by Mario Veljovic. He is the General Manager at VAD Technologies. Mario is a veteran of the ICT industry who has held senior management positions at leading ICT distributors across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Throughout the course of his over 25-year-long career, he has built and executed strategies that have helped transform organizations. He has worked for traditional ICT distribution to value-added distribution, as well as founded a distribution business that is focused on next generation and disruptive technologies. He has been based in the Middle East since 2003, and as the general manager at VAD Technologies, he is excited to engage with enterprises, vendors, and resellers within the region to help address some of their biggest IT opportunities and challenges. Without further ado, Mario, I will officially hand over to you for your introduction.
Thank you very much, Kalila. Really excited to be here this morning, and very pleased with this very strong participation which we see. I'm Mario Veljovic. I'm the General Manager of VAD Technologies, as Kalila has pointed out. We are the distributor of Exasol here in the Middle East, and this is all what we want to focus on, which is Exasol and how it actually can help you actually drive your business better. And as VAD Technologies, I mean, we are very proud in order to bring in disruptive technologies like Exasol to the Middle East and introduce them into the market, as we feel that the market is in big need for disruptive technologies, which will help us all to actually reduce the total cost of ownership and drive very fast ROI. And with that, I would like to give it back to you, Kalila, and I think we should get started then.
Perfect, yes. So now I will welcome Mr. Graham to this virtual stage. Graham Sharp is, hello. So Graham Sharp is the Director of Strategic Solution at Exasol. Graham has deep experience in the data business, ranging from BI front ends through all styles of data warehousing to advanced analytics and operational machine learning. As Director of Digital Analytics Platform at Adidas, he was instrumental in building advanced platforms and solutions for e-com topics such as large-scale customer analytics, in-season forecasting, market pricing intelligence, and dynamic pricing. Working at Adidas for the last 10 plus years with Exasol as the core analytics database provided Graham the knowledge and experience to take on this new role at Exasol as the Director of Strategic Solutions, allowing Exasol customers to gain the benefit of his experience driving the advancement of BI and advanced analytics at a global brand. Without further ado, Graham, please take the stage.
Thank you very much, Kalila, for that introduction. I've got to admit, this is probably the earliest I've been up for a while. I'm based here in Germany, where Exasol is, the headquarters of Exasol are in Nuremberg. So it's a little bit earlier for me than normal. So I'll try and be awake and attentive. So, real-time data centricity.
So Graham, we don't see your screen. So if you can share that.
Let's.
Perfect.
Yeah. Can you see that now?
Yes, we can.
Which screen? Sorry. Can you see my? Let me just stop that because I'm probably sharing the wrong screen. Sorry. There we go. So you should be seeing a slide, yes?
Great stuff. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So to get to data centricity in real time, it's a really interesting topic actually, and it's a relatively new one, which is interesting in the IT world we live in. We do talk a lot of hype and a lot of new terms and technology on a regular basis. But having said that, data centricity is probably one of the newer ones. So let's start by actually defining what it is so that we're all on the same page and we've all got the same understanding. When we look at typical architectures of enterprise system architectures, traditionally they've always been what we call application centric. So the data that's involved in those systems is fitting into the applications that we create, whether that application is a supply chain system or a sales system. The system comes first and the data comes second. So typically now enterprise architects are looking at these systems and looking at from a more data point of view and finding a lot of problems. Typically security, governance being the major ones. So if you have the same piece of data in many different applications, you have to apply the security many times to that piece of data. Whereas, that becomes an overhead, it becomes a problem, it leads to costs, maintenance issues, etc., etc. So more and more architects are actually looking to take a more data-centric approach as an alternative to this traditional application approach. And in this world, the data is actually the center of everything. So it comes first, and the processes and the systems are designed around that data. So if we go back to the security issue, you would apply the security concept in one place to every piece of data and one place only. That doesn't mean it's new, specifically new technology. These systems tend to be a combination of existing, maybe newer technologies that are brought together. So we're talking, there'll always be a database involved, but it might be a different kind of database. Blockchain, content delivery, so messaging systems. If any of you are using APIs at the moment, Kafka and that kind of technologies, then some of you might already be, starting down this journey without actually realizing it, because those type of systems are moving packets of data around, but rather than batches of data. But we'll come on to that. Yeah, so these packets of data tend to be related to a business event, rather than it being tagged to an application. And when we talk about events, then we start to talk about the need for event stream processing and a platform to handle that. And if we go to Gartner for a description of event stream processing, then it's what you see there on the screen. So we're talking about performing real-time, or perhaps near real-time calculations on streaming event data. So we're talking about moving away from that traditional transactional style world to a more continuous, this continuous stream of events. So again, moving from batch to real time. So, that leaves us in a position where, people like ourselves, we need to start to understand what this means and what this whole real-time analytics world means. Because the crux of it is to analyze these events and analyze the data involved. So if we take that real-time analytics side of things, again, let's just make sure we're talking about the same thing. Going back to Gartner again, it's the discipline of, handling these events as they come in, analyzing the data within the event very, very quickly and responding, doing something business-based that will help you in terms of making a business decision in a very, very short time. There tends to be two types of this style of analytics. On demand is where we're kind of sitting waiting for an event to happen, and then that that triggers and processes the result. So think of an abandoned cart event on your e-com website. That event will process a certain number of actions that you will want to, help improve the customer success that you've got as that abandoned cart event occurs. And if you can do that in real time immediately, of course, you're always going to get a better result with the consumer. The other side is more continuous, where we're actively monitoring a stream of data, perhaps looking for particular events or outliers of events or trends in events, and then actively actioning that event, that outlier, perhaps when we see it. So think of monitoring a social media stream of data or tweets on a particular hashtag, and all of a sudden you're going from 5 or 10 tweets a minute to thousands, tens of thousands, and it's connected to your company and your website perhaps, and you need to react to that very, very quickly. So you get a trigger to say something's happening, do something. If we put those two things together and add in data volume plus this real-time capability in terms of event stream processing, this is what we're looking for to be able to handle this scenario. And it requires, slightly different ways of working, different systems, but it's definitely something we need to get into to give us a competitive advantage, because all your competitors are starting to do this, whether they know it or not. They will be using some form of real-time analytics. So there's some use cases. I'm not going to read through them all. You can see them on the screen, but just to give you that, an idea of where these things will be perhaps already working in your systems, and they may be embedded in out-of-the-box tools that you already have. Perhaps if you're using Salesforce as a front end to your e-com website, it will already have a capability for next best action. But the point is that with all of these use cases, you have the ability to expand and enhance upon what you will get, even out of the box with a system. Or you may have to actually build and create this from scratch yourselves. So if you, again, going back to that Salesforce option, if you just stick to what's out of the box from Salesforce for next best action, you're not getting any differentiation to your competitors. If you can enhance and expand on that particular real-time event, make it even better, then you become slicker and your website is nicer to use and your customers will keep coming back. So all very relative and all things that you should be looking at implementing if you're not doing so already. Of course, it always comes with a challenge. A nice red line on the screen. I have no idea how I got that. Let's just ignore it. Yeah, these things always come with a challenge. With that massive throughput of data, we need to get reliability and accuracy, as well as that fast ability to analyze and react to what's happening. So to a large degree, the storage and the ingestion part of this process is covered. We'll see in the next slide some typical systems that do this for us already, and you'll probably be familiar with the names involved, even if you're not using them. But that whole ingest the events process and then store the actual data ready to be analyzed is already kind of quite well covered, especially in the cloud. The problem that we have is that to analyze that information, that side is not particularly well covered. But when you put everything together, when you put the volume and the speed together. What's blocking that? Well, if you look at cloud-based solutions, then a data lake itself, having a data lake doesn't really help you. It's file-based. A file-based solution is never ever going to give you the speed that you need to analyze these huge volumes of data that are typically involved. Okay, so put your database on the cloud. Yes, but again, typical traditional database solutions simply can't reach that performance level required with the volumes that we're talking about. So a lot of big companies went down the NoSQL route, Amazon and Netflix, good examples. So when we're talking NoSQL, I'm talking about databases like MongoDB, DynamoDB, Couchbase. So databases that are very, very good, that are designed to handle events in effect. So key value pairs, an event occurs and this is the data that goes with it. And they're great. They can handle the ingestion very, very quickly. But again, it comes back to the analytics. They are NoSQL, and SQL is still the de facto language of analytics. They can't handle SQL. They're very poor at managing joins between large tables, large sets of key value pairs, which is a very typical scenario in analytics. So you really have no capability in a NoSQL database for big high volume analytics. So of course the solution is to incorporate a pure analytical database that keeps the significant benefits of our SQL based relational database. All the benefits being, SQL is available, lots of cheap resources or relatively cheap resources that are capable of managing and handling those environments. A good analytical database will have full ACID compliance to ensure that you get data quality and data consistency, even with that massive volume of data that's flowing in. And of course, you get to utilize the speed of these solutions because they're designed for large volumes at very, very high speed. They're in memory, they're column based. Typically, they'll be self-tuning, massively parallel. So they've got everything that's required to handle this very scenario that we're talking about. And at the end of the day, that's going to enable you as an IT department or whatever to deliver what we all want, and that's the best in class consumer retail experience. If we can handle all those use cases that we've talked about at speed and at volume, and we're a long way down the road to providing our customers with some and put a smile on their face and keep them coming back. What does that look like? So on the screen there, you can see along the top is the process. So going from these events being created, whether it's from a mobile app, your supply chain perhaps, giving you figures about your stock, the Internet of Things, those monitors that we were talking about, perhaps that's part of your manufacturing process even, social media, all those things, creating events that are being consumed and ingested in the messaging layer, as we called it. I've split that into three because we've got the three main cloud providers. At the top, we've got Microsoft. In the middle, we've got Amazon, and at the bottom, we've got Google. Each of these cloud providers have created a stable of solutions to handle exactly these scenarios. So the typical names that you'll hear, you know, Microsoft Event Hub, Stream Analytics, going into an Azure database. Amazon is very much Kinesis based, which is actually based on Kafka. It has different variations for handling slightly different styles of the data coming in, whether it's a pure data stream or it can be video. They have a special handler for video or sound. So they've got a collection of tools. Yeah, and Google's just the same, PubSub. It's just, they all work in a very, very similar format. They're all a messaging layer. They're all taking, you know, event type data, small pieces of data, but many, many of them, and passing them on to be processed and then stored, typically in their own storage solutions, which are fine. But like we said, these solutions will all have a limit of some variety, which is where we need to put our performance and the analytics layer in place. So here, typically we have, you'll probably will have heard of Snowflake. Teradata has a new cloud-based solution, but Exasol is in this box, and it's a much bigger logo than the other two, and that's for a reason. I know I come from Exasol, but the reason is it does outperform all of these solutions by a long way in terms of speed and performance. And if you combine that speed and performance with the cost that is involved, then you've got a very nice solution for this layer. And of course, you need to then use that data that's been made available in your downstream systems, or to create an action, or to present, you know, presentation is typically your BI front-end tools that you see there, or, you know, you're feeding directly back into your apps and your e-com website to personalize it on the go. So, you know, you know that I landed on that I'm a new user, and the first thing I looked for is, in Adidas terms, perhaps a football boot. So, you know, from there on, you're going to tailor my experience to looking at football within that particular session, perhaps. So that's hopefully, you know, an environment that you probably will have heard of some of these names, even if you're not already using them. And hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're talking about in terms of data centricity. So, you know, the takeaway here is that there are some very nice solutions already in place that you can start to use almost out of the box all the way along, because, you know, these cloud providers can get you up and running very, very quickly. And even with Exasol, you have the ability to connect to a test environment in the cloud free of charge, that you can hook up to these, you know, the stream of your choice, to instantly get up and running and available in a matter of hours. So you can, you know, you can start to play in this world, even if you're not doing it already, very, very quickly, quite easily. So I hope that was a good introduction. I hope that made you think about some of the things in your own environments and your own companies. Some of you hopefully are already doing some of this and can provide us a bit of feedback and a bit of experience. I'll certainly chip in with my experience of how we used, we were typically Amazon based in Adidas. So I've got a good idea about that side of things. And hopefully we can have a little debate about this in the next hour or so. Maybe hand back to Kalila to kick us off on that route.
Yes, Graham, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions and comments, but before we get into our Q&A session, I am going to launch a poll right now, and if everyone can just insert your responses, I will launch right now to pop up on your screen.
I'll leave that picture on the screen so that we've got something to talk around.
Yep.
Yep.
So if everyone would take a moment, please. So the question is, how would you describe your maturity level in your current data and analytics capability? Let's allow for about maybe 30 more seconds. And Graham and anyone else from maybe VAD or Exasol, if you want to maybe help discuss some of the responses.
Yeah, it's exactly as I would have expected. It is a new world. It is a new an edge to where people are typically based at the moment. So I would have expected exactly what we're seeing to be for people to be maybe playing with it or just getting started. Because it is new technology and it is a new world. So it's exactly as I expected. And that's a kind of comforting thing for everyone on the call to know that while we talk about, you know, real-time analytics and real-time data centricity, it is new. So don't worry if you know that you're not doing it already. You are with the masses, but it's something that you should be looking at for sure.
And Graham, just to add to it, I remember when we actually signed last year with Exasol, and I mean the PR was going into the media. I had a lot of actually partners and even friends actually getting in touch with me and said, this is the product of the hour, because we have a lot of data, but we need to put the data to work in order to have the right analytics and making something out of it, because suddenly we found ourselves in a market where we need to have the right data to make the right decisions in order to actually get consumers buying the right stuff, and us making the right planning. So and that's why I think, yes, we are at the right time in order to introduce this product to the region now.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if I look back at Adidas for 2020, when COVID hit, and you know, everybody knows Adidas. Adidas is a omni-channel retail company. We were hit very hard. All our retail stores closed down. That's something like 2,500 stores worldwide. Plus our wholesale channel was dead. So the only option we had to actually, you know, sell our product was through our e-com website. So, you know, this is the prime example of how you manage and improve and expand on that capability. And then, you know, Adidas went from a target of 4 billion euros turnover in 2020 to actually doing 4.5 billion. And that was an improvement over the 2 billion that they'd done in 2019. So that was enormous growth and enormous move forward. But you cannot do that. You cannot have that growth unless you have the right tools in place that can expand, and grow at an enterprise rate with the data that's coming in and with the number of consumers that you're dealing with, which is why you need this, you know, the architecture that you see on the screen now. It's why you need a tool like Exasol, which can expand and can handle these huge volumes of data that we're seeing, and can still give you that quick real-time turnaround. So it's enormously important at the moment. Cool.
Thank you. Everyone in the audience, I am going to allow you to unmute yourself. So if you want to share any comments or questions, I know we have a couple that have trickled in, so we can start with that, but anyone, please feel free to speak up at any time. So Graham, we can start with our first question. Where do you see the benefits of a real-time analytics approach for your consumers?
So I'll kick it off, but basically what I've already just alluded to. It's at Adidas, we had this a tagline that we wanted to provide that this world-class, best of breed consumer experience, consumer shopping experience for the website. So for me, that's the number one point. It's always the consumer, and we've always got to come back to the consumer with keeping them in mind and making sure that we are providing the best possible experience for those for the consumer. How we do that, is a collection of all the things that we see on the screen, but it's always about the consumer.
We have another question from. Sorry, Graham.
No, carry on. So again, if anybody else wants to throw their thoughts in on that one,
yes,
then please share.
So Francis, I've just unmuted you if you want to share your comments.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. This is Francis Arul from Alshare Group. One of the challenges we have is on the integration layer or the ingestion layer, right? From the ERP or even from the e-commerce or mobile commerce platform which we use. So we use all the three technologies. So we use Azure, AWS, and Google. So the most of the problem we face is in the injection or in the integration. So do you have any comments on how to make sure that we have the best-in-class right model to do the integration? That is my first question. The second question is also, you talked about once we have the data in the right place in your performance analytics or advanced analytics platform, then we use our visualization layer, BI, Power BI or Tableau. But you, in the questionnaire, there was a question how to feed this information back to our digital commerce platform or ERP platform to utilize the advanced analytics or the performance marketing. It can be any topic to use. So can you give us some comments on that as well? Some use cases?
Sure. So if you go back to the first part, I mean, to be honest, my expertise is more towards the right-hand side of the diagram. So using the data after it's come in. But if we're looking at that ingestion layer, then my advice would be, get the experts in, make sure that you connect directly with the companies involved, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google, or whether it's Microsoft. Get their experts in initially. These areas are very, very new. Finding people, independent freelancers, or training up your own guys is not an easy process. You need to find people that have got some experience already. Pay the money initially to get yourselves up and running and get yourselves in a strong position to start with. There are, there's other alternatives that I've not mentioned. But whatever it is, you need somebody who's been there and done it before to get you started, because they are very, very tricky and complex environments to handle. There's lots of moving parts, and if you don't get those parts put together in the right way, all the systems sized in the right way, you will have issues from the beginning. So my advice would be, pay the money to start with, get over that initial hurdle as fast as you possibly can, and get yourself to the point where you can concentrate on the right-hand side of using the data, and because that's where you're adding the value at the end of the day. That's where you're going to get the money payback. That's going to, give you the reason for actually doing this in the first place. So. I mean, I wouldn't advise. I'm not going to sit there and say Microsoft is better than Amazon or Google's the one to go for. It depends on your environment. It depends on what you're already committed to, perhaps. Even if you've got a combination of two or all three of the clouds, that's something you're going to have to work out for yourself. Every case is different. Every use case is different. There's nothing we could really help there. In terms of the actually using the data, at the presentation and action end, then yes, the typical BI side is, that's the no-brainer. That's relatively easy to understand. Where we got our benefit at Amazon, at Adidas, I keep saying we, it's not me anymore. It's 6 weeks and I still say I'm still can't get used to not being at Adidas after 22 years. That's where we're talking about, as I mentioned earlier, where perhaps what you're looking at is enhancing and improving tools that are already in place. So if you've got an e-com website, the chances are you've already got a recommendation engine. So a recommendation in terms of perhaps if the product or article that the consumer is trying to buy is not in stock, what should the website suggest as the next 2 or 3 articles that the consumer could buy instead? That information is typically coming out of the recommendation engine, which is typically an off-the-shelf product, and it will have some level of AI and perhaps intrinsically inside it, but you're not in control of that. That's the product itself. If you can enhance and improve the data that recommendation engine is working with, then you're going to get a better recommendation out of it, and therefore your consumer's going to be happier, and there's more chance that he will buy product B when product A is not available. So that's perhaps where we're talking about, and this is where we start to have the breakdown of the real-time scenario. Typically, where we are now, there's very few people doing anything in real time. Even though we've seen those use cases, we can still, most companies are enhancing that information in batch still. It's used in real time during the selling process, the actual results of the analytics, but the analytics itself is perhaps done on a batch basis overnight. You're feeding the results towards the recommendation engine, whether it's something like Monotate or Setona or those typical tools that we all use. If you can improve the pool of information that's working from, then you're going to get a better result. So that's typically what we're talking about as a first step, at least, before we perhaps start to look at the real-time opportunities. Does that make sense? Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thanks a lot.
Cool.
Thank you, Francis, for your question. Mr. Ganesh, I will now unmute you to ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, Graham. I just want to ask, when we do reports on the company, we would want to compare it with what is happening on the industry trends. So are there any silos or information or statistics available in general, wherein we can pull in those data and we can put it up as a comparison with our reports, saying that, okay, our company is here and the industry is going here. Let's say, for example, the profits, or you can say like the margins, or we can say the population, because we are into retail industry. Usually the profits or even the turnover depends upon the population. So something like that. Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not aware of anything that would give you that kind of comparison. I would only refer back to the usual examples, Gartner, Forrester, those. But perhaps my colleagues that are on the call can comment on this one. They might have been working more in this area.
Hi, this is Keishan from Exasol. From my understanding, there's obviously industry analysts, as Graham has referenced. Those are probably going to be your best bets at this point in time to be able to get that kind of information. It's very difficult, based on my experience in the industry as well, that we find companies trying to find competitive information, not competitive information, but trying to stack up against industry standards. So it's more that way would probably be the better approach, as opposed to trying to find out in terms of population. Hope that answers the question.
I think there's plenty of information we could provide if you're looking at if you're purely looking for performance and speed and benefits of using a tool like Exasol compared to the Amazon Redshifts of this world or the Snowflakes even. The guys on the call can certainly help you with that and provide a lot of use cases as well that will show you why companies are using an analytical database and specifically Exasol to give them their business benefit. Again, maybe coming from experience, it's not perhaps the reporting side of things that is going to give you the biggest ROI, the biggest benefits. At Adidas, we had a team that we called the trading analytics team. So the idea for that team was they were purely focused on improving the availability of stock and articles on our ecom website during the in-season period. Basically to ensure that a consumer always had an article available to buy, in essence. So using all the data that's coming through the systems, being able to crunch the large volumes of supply chain information, of sales information, and put that together and to say highlight fast moving stock that you didn't expect to be fast moving, and therefore is going to be out of stock in 1 or 2 days if you don't do something quickly. That's where the benefit was coming in. So with the analytics combined with a little bit of reporting and tools like Alteryx to provide you a workflow capability to manage and handle the data to give you that insight. The guys were spotting articles that they could pull from retail outlets, perhaps to pull it out of the shops to make it available to be sold on the ecom website. To ensure that didn't go out of stock. And there's plenty of things like that this team was doing, and those are the things that are actually adding value. I think Adidas purely through those kind of activities was adding 60 million additional revenue, which turned into 20 million profit at the end of the day, and that's just off one website. It's a big website, of course, but those are the things that you need to look at, perhaps more than the pure reporting.
Okay.
Anybody
Ganesh,
else?
Yeah, Ganesh, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that answered my question.
Okay, Graham, we do have another question that came through chat. It says, what are the top challenges to leveraging real-time analytics?
I would actually throw that one back to the crowd. I'd like to hear from you guys because, in that poll, we saw everybody's at the start of this journey. So I'd like to ask you guys, what is it that's preventing you from having an environment like this in place already? Are you stuck perhaps at just the basics getting data, clean and good quality data together in the first place? And what are the typical problems that you guys have that are stopping you doing what we've talked about? I'd love to know. Anyone?
Okay, so
Hi, Graham,
Francis
can you
here.
hear me? It's Richard, yeah?
Yep.
Hi, it's Richard,
I-
yeah. Can you hear me, Graham?
Yes, I can hear you, Richard.
Yeah. Hi, so this is Richard Wingfield from the Alpha Tame Group based out of the UAE. Graham, I think one of our biggest challenges actually has nothing to do with technology, has nothing to do with platforms, it has to do with culture. If you look at the function we've set up, and I think we have in the 14 months that we've built our centralized data, AI, and automation also falls under me function. I think we've done a really good job. We've chosen a data platform. The Alpha Tame Group is an incredibly federated organization with close to 400 brands. You can just imagine, Graham, data siloed all over the place. And some of our brands are big, like M&S and IKEA. Funny enough, we actually ran Adidas in Asia a while back. But the challenge was there was technical challenges in actually bringing all that data together and choosing the right software, choosing the right tools. I think we were we're in a good place. Now, Graham, we're actually building the use cases, exactly what you're saying. Are there real-time use cases? We've built our own customer data platform. As you can imagine, there are lots of customer interactions, touch points we have. We're looking at, excuse me, operational use cases like demand forecasting within Marks and Spencer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we've done really well. But I'll tell you where we are failing. We are failing in converting that and selling that story into our business, okay? So our function is an absolute cost center. And when we do our business cases and everyone now is looking at ROI and what have you, then the only way we're going to get ROI is the adoption of those use cases within our business. And there is great reticence. People are scared. We've done demand forecasting for M&S food out in Hong Kong, for example, and it is incredibly accurate. It's incredibly impressive, but there's reticence from the business because now they're looking at, if I'm a merchandiser or a planner working in M&S, I'm going, well, is this thing, whatever this thing is, people are calling it AI, people are calling it ML, I don't really even know what it is, but is this thing going to take my job? Because when they compared me using my manual forecast to this thing's forecast, it was 20% better than me. So I think one of the things where we've dropped the ball in our organization is we haven't placed enough emphasis on the cultural change, on the change management, on how's this going to help you, how's this going to drive you. If you are a shop assistant in Marks and Spencer's and there's someone standing in front of you and suddenly something pops up on the screen which says try and cross-sell them something. Even as a sales assistant, you should understand why. Am I cross-selling something based on what's on their basket on product association, or am I trying to cross-sell them something because they've given me their loyalty card and they are part of a cohort and the other people in the cohort are buying XYZ, for example. So I just think we have not done a good enough job in that area, and that is really holding us back.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and the whole cultural side of things. A couple of things you always need to help you smooth this path is someone at the C level who is behind you and is championing the cause to start with. Two, you need to start pushing yourself into being a profit center rather than a cost center. Like I said, that trading analytics team we had at Adidas was purely a profit center. They weren't given a penny of budget without upfront showing the business case that they were working on and the actual amount that they were going to bring in and the KPIs that were going to be measuring that ROI. So Adidas went through a cultural change of not allocating budget without having that very, very tight ROI calculation available, visible to everyone involved at an early stage. I mean, that was one of the first things that happened when COVID kicked in. So we went from a company that, yeah, just spend the money. There weren't real tight controls over budgets to being very, very tight control at a much higher level, you know, even up to sea level. So that, you know, I get what you're saying 100%, and it's a typical scenario, but, you know, then you've got to start selling it as well. If you bring this AI ML type solution that gives you a benefit, maybe that means it's doing someone's job, but take that someone and educate them to do the next thing. Yeah, it's not like you're getting rid of them. You're just improving it and expanding, because it's a never-ending list of use cases. Get them working on the next use case that's going to bring in the next piece of profit that's going to improve your top and bottom line. That's the way to look at it. Enablement. It's just all about enablement and moving forward, not about getting rid of people and resources. That was a good one. Anybody else like to give us their?
Hi, Graham. I'd like to add to that. I think culture boils down from sea level. So, you know, if it's adopted at sea level and it's pushed down across the organization, adoption rate's much better. And it's all about, you know, to your point, it's about education, constant education. I mean, I'm fully aware of people saying to us, well, we're going to lose our job, or, you know, you bring AL and MI into our organization. There's no need for us there. But it's about educating those people of the value that that data is bringing to you. And that is a very, very difficult thing. But change generally in any organization, if it's pushed down from the top down, the adoption rate is much better. And you find that people are starting to educate themselves better in trying to understand the value of these pieces coming into the business.
Yeah, and the end result is the people that you're saying might be replaced actually end up doing or performing a role that's far more interesting and personally exciting than they were originally. So, you know, it's
Absolutely.
swings and roundabouts.
And one of the learnings we had in Alshia Group working with our host brand H&M in using the AI and ML is to combine both the human intelligence with the AI and ML. So when a merchandiser or when kind of e-commerce, I will say analytics team giving some recommendation, when the AI and ML combined with the human, then it has the real powerful meaning, right? So one way the people who are using the AI and ML, they are not afraid to use it because they know it's going to become a tool for them to perform well. So when we combine both this aspect with the human, then we will have a good adoption rate. So that's the experience we had in Alshia.
Yeah, very much so. Very good example of that at Adidas was the market pricing intelligence process. So web scraping all our competitors, pulling all that information about pricing, article pricing into Exasol, and then reporting on and making that visible. Yeah, there was a lot of analytics involved, but all that analytics was mainly to provide the picture and make perhaps some suggestions or hone in on particular articles that needed looking at in detail. But it was always a human that has to make that decision, because there's politics involved, there's laws involved, there's many things. So, you know, perhaps we had Adidas has a commitment with a particular wholesaler that they won't reduce the prices until a certain date into the season. And if we see that price being reduced early, then you can't just have a system cutting them down and stopping their supply or doing something drastic like that. There has to be human intervention. And like we said, that person's job then gets a lot more interesting, because he's gone from just crunching numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, perhaps, to look at these prices, to being given the information and being put in a position to make a decision, to go back to that wholesaler and have a conversation and have a business discussion. Why did you reduce the price? Is there anything that we could have done to help you to whatever, rather than just being a number cruncher? So, like we say, you know, the education level, not the education, but the level of that individual's job suddenly goes up the value chain, and he becomes a decision maker. And that's, you know, that goes back to the whole discussion about data democratization. How are we getting data into the hands of these kind of people in a way that it's not just data points, it's information and insight, so that they can make a decision. And again, that's where you need these tools, the tools like an Exasol, because the volumes of data that you're playing with and the machine learning algorithms are running 24/7 in the background in order to crunch that data, put it all together, and to take the data to a higher level. Yeah, good one. Have we got any more questions on the chat board, or anybody want to jump in?
Okay, we do have one more question in the chat. How do you justify the commitment or investment necessary to build out a real-time analytics environment?
Yeah, I guess everyone should have an answer to that, but again, it's everybody else is doing it, so if you don't, you're going to get left behind. And I mean, that's the scary one. You know, if you don't move now, you will be a dinosaur in 12 months' time. But you know, that's not one that you're going to go to your board with. Your board should be saying that. They should be understanding that already themselves, and they should be pushing down to you, saying, "Look, guys, we need to be doing this. Make it happen." So, from your point of view, perhaps it's more a case of building the business cases based on return on investment, based on
the second thing you can do is
running the numbers and showing that you're going to make a difference. Someone who was trying to say something then, perhaps? But yeah,
yes,
for me, go on.
Unmuting you. No, I've just tried unmuting you, Mr. As I'm doing.
So anyways, anybody else got ideas on that one? You know, how to justify the commitment? Because you know, there is a lot of money involved in getting started with those kind of environments. But again, like we said, you can do it very easily and very cheaply, and then ramp up as you go. So actually, the initial investment doesn't have to be massive. It's more a change in mindset, to be honest.
Yeah, great.
Maybe do it, set it up and do it and show it.
Yeah, just adding to it, some of the experiences we've had in the UK is the stakeholders involved. So it's bringing that team together. So to get that justification, get the right people with their use cases. I think we've mentioned it a number of times. And then there's more intent from the business, because you've got more people creating the need. So that does help with the justification. We're seeing it in live environments right now. So it's a key one.
Yeah, it's kind of build it and they will come kind of thing. If they see the first capabilities or the first result, then the business themselves their mind will start to move in that direction, and you'll very quickly get inundated with requests.
Yeah, it's the blueprint, right? It's
yeah.
rinse and repeat model that you can then take to other parts of the business.
Yeah. But even something as simple as if you've got an Exasol in place and you can show that your existing management reports are running in 10 seconds rather than 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's an easy one. That's immediately you're going to get buy-in from that, because it means your data analysts, your data scientists themselves are not kicking off a process, going for a coffee, going to have lunch, come back, and then maybe the results are ready. They're working all permanently because there's no downtime. They're getting the results back to their query immediately, which that gives you the return on the investment already, because your team is far more productive, and they're working towards those other ROI cases. So and even the benefit of a self-tuning tool like Exasol means you can perhaps reallocate a couple of database administrators that you previously they were permanently building indexes or making sure the data was okay and performing the right way. Move them to a value-adding role. And there's your return. You've already covered the initial investment of a tool like Exasol. I mean, that's seeing is believing, but with Exasol, you don't create indexes, you don't do any of that administration work that you have with a normal relational database. So you can almost justify the initial cost of your first Exasol box with being able to reallocate system engineers, database administrators to value-added roles.
For me, it's all about revenue and profit margin, right? In digital world, it's about conversion. So I want to have the right product at the right time and give the right recommendation. And to do all this advanced analytics, I need real-time data. And I need to give the tools for my trading team to sell more. So for me, the business case is just how to increase the revenue, how to improve your conversion, how to reduce the abandonment rate, and how to improve your payment experience. So and see where we lose our customers. So one of the biggest challenge we face is, so we had a very good traffic. So we have more than 12 plus brands in 10 markets. So we have around 70 plus e-commerce and mobile commerce platform. We had a very good traffic, but the conversion was not up to the industry standard. So we lose people in the PLP, PDP, even after adding to the basket or during the payment gateway, right? So these kind of real-time advanced analytics tools will give you a kind of insight where we need to focus to increase your revenue, and also where we need to focus on increase your profit margin, especially from the downstream application like supply chain. So we need to have the right supply chain model for the last mile delivery, make sure when to use your store stock or kind of endless aisle, and how to manage your return. Do I need to return to the warehouse, or do I need to have the return to the store? So these kind of real-time analytics tools will help the business to increase the revenue and to reduce the cost and the profit margin. So that should be in the business plan.
And all of that evolves around knowing your consumer in detail. So like you said, I think you said you built your own CDP already. Or if you haven't got that single view of consumer, that's something you need to get in place, first and foremost, so that you can start to build the analytics around that consumer and start to understand that consumer in detail and in depth. So I think Adidas if you actually landed on the website and registered and maybe even bought something, at that point we had 8,500 pieces of information about you as a consumer that we could call upon in all the different analytics scenarios. And that's an awful lot of detail. It's an awful lot of information that is all going to go towards making that shopping experience high class and something the consumer wants to do again on your website. And that's the point at the end of the day. If you don't know your consumer, you're not going to have that slick and nice experience. You're just another website.
Do we have any more comments or questions that you'd like to ask Graham or any of our other participants? Reminder, everyone can unmute themselves to speak up at this point. Okay. So Graham, do you want to maybe share key takeaways before we?
Yeah, so just drawing on my experience at Adidas again, I think we've touched on these things. So number one was, actually the last thing I said, start with that single consumer view if it's at all possible. For those of you who've got multiple brands and multiple shopping experiences, I guess, the key there is to bring them all together into one, if you possibly can. At Adidas, we had that experience with Reebok being a sub-brand and websites like the Runtastic, the app. So they were all merged together into one. So you got the benefit of the volume and having all your consumer information in one place. Maybe start with that as a goal. Yeah, and then look at these technologies. Start small. You can start almost free of charge with all of it. Build your use case, build your initial use case that shows the benefit and shows the basic architecture and how it works, fits together. Get buy-in for that and then go big, and then build. Get the experts in, like we said initially, especially for these tricky streaming capabilities. Yeah, and then stick an analytical engine, high performance engine like Exasol on the end of it to make sure that you can really do it at speed and at high volume. That would be my suggestions for success.
Thank you. And anyone, if you have any final comments that you would like to add to that?
I have one question for you, Graham. I know you are now an Exasol employee, but
Yeah.
I'm going to take you back to Adidas for a second. What was one of the key reasons you decided to go down the route of a high performance analytics database? What were the drivers for you to start investigating those type of technologies?
It was a long time ago, actually. 2009, Adidas was globalizing, so it was bringing all its systems together because it was very market driven back in those days. So we had SAP ERP, the main ERP, and SAP Business Warehouse as the data warehouse. Anyone that's familiar with those tools knows that they're very much a black box, and getting data out of SAP is a nightmare. So we were basically doing all our reporting in Excel, and we wanted a nice front end, BI front end, to go on top of this world. And we did a typical RFP, and MicroStrategy came out on top because they partnered with Exasol. They came along as a pair, and they were far better than the Cognos, the ClickView at the time, the other options at the time. So it was kind of almost by chance that Microsoft were clever enough to do that. but we saw the benefit of the benefits that MicroStrategy gained were largely due to the fact that it had Exasol as this incredible high performance engine sitting behind it. And Exasol, then we bought both. We bought Exasol and MicroStrategy, but that was just the way in, you know, as almost as an acceleration layer for our reporting. But they very quickly then pushed down, and it became the actual full data warehouse layer. And then when e-com and digital started to come along, 2015, it became this analytical engine as well. When we started having to really churn these high volumes of consumer-based information. And we were taking the website data from Adobe Analytics, so all your web click data, which is probably the highest volume data that there is in a retail business. And churning that data, you know, there was just no option other than Exasol to be able to churn that data in a 24-hour period. So it kind of morphed out of being purely an acceleration tool to being a full data warehouse, to being almost a data lake in itself. You know, because to be honest, a company like Adidas, we have a data lake. We've got a typical Amazon S3 environment that all data gets thrown into. But and the idea is that, you know, you've got that beautiful data lake environment that your data scientists can access whenever they want and access any of the data they want. But the reality is the data still goes into Exasol and the data scientists access through Exasol, because why would they wait for their model to run and take, you know, an hour to perhaps check 50, 60 different variations of the model, when they can do exactly the same in Exasol and it takes 5 seconds, literally. So Adidas doesn't really need a lake. The only reason Adidas has got a data lake is political reasons. You know, 5, 6 years ago, when the big data hype was coming along, we had to have it. And we started with Cloudera Hadoop. And look where that is now. It's dead, utterly dead. We went through all phases. We had it on premise. We then put it in a data center in Frankfurt. And then we got rid of it and replaced it with S3, Amazon. And I think if you look at the usage and if you ask all the questions, why did the Hadoop Cloudera fail? You can answer exactly the same to the Amazon S3 environment. It's a hype, and everyone out there, you know, don't get caught up in that hype. The cloud, these clouds are file-based storage solutions, nothing more and nothing less. If you were running on your PCs some data analytics, would you run it? Would you store all your data in CSV files or text files and try and analyze the data there? Or would you put the data into a Microsoft Access database and try and do relational queries against it? Which one do you think would be quicker? The answer is simple. It's a no-brainer. So why does everyone try to do analytics in the cloud environment, in the data lake, using PySpark and Python and all those tools that are coming along and are? It's utter nonsense, and you're wasting your time and you're spending an awful lot of money doing so. These tools are data storage tools. If you want to analyze the data, you've got to shift it, you know, okay, shift it into an Amazon Redshift or a Google BigQuery and do things there. But that's going to cost you an awful lot of money in the long run as soon as you start to ramp up the volume. The volume of data goes above anything serious, and I'm talking, you know, anything above a terabyte, you are in big trouble, because A, it's going to be really, really slow, and B, it's going to cost you a lot, because that's the cost model of the cloud. Storage is very, very cheap. Processing is incredibly expensive. And you don't know if you're doing your processing, cloud-based processing, you have no idea what your costs are going to be. You cannot predict your costs. Yeah. So if you move to a Exasol in the cloud, and you've then got a license that is set for the year, you know exactly what you're going to spend. And typically that's going to be less anyhow. Or even if it's the same, you've got 100 times more processing power. So you're doing 100 times more things with your data.
I think that's, some of the trade-offs in terms of storage costs in the cloud. It's exceptionally cheap.
Yeah.
But the compute cost is where it all comes in. So that really is the driver for cloud solutions. Is they all after that compute cost, and particularly if you're doing your data modeling in the cloud, that compute cost can run into an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
So having the ability to be able to predict that cost model, or what the cost is going to be for the next 12 months, you are able to budget better, if that helps. So those are things you got to look at. But a great insight from yourself as to where you've come from, and I see you speak very passionately about this particular topic, because you've obviously lived it for the last 10-15 years. You've lived through this.
And it wasn't an easy 10 years, but then that's the beauty of IT. It moves on, and if you can move with it, and you can spot the right trend or spot the right solution, you're laughing. And a tool like Exasol, it has grown. It's grown itself. 10 years ago, it was only on premise. I remember this huge box of servers coming on the back of a lorry. But now, obviously, they've got the Exa Cloud solution, which is a managed cloud solution, and they've got the pure put it on Amazon, put it on Google Cloud solution. So everyone has to grow. Everyone has to move with the times. And it's a really good example of a company that has kept its base philosophy of pure speed and performance and quality, and yet still been able to deliver all the different platforms. So yes, I am passionate.
Thanks for the insight, Graham.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been very insightful chatting to you. I mean, I know you are working for Exasol now, but we never really get the opportunity to speak to you as often as this. So really, really thank you very much for taking the time today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope it helped everybody on the call.
So Graham, thank you again. And Kishan, just to reiterate, we are so appreciative that you shared your insight with us. Everyone, we will be sharing Graham's contact details. If you have any follow-up specific questions for him, you can reach out that way. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Graham, so much for your insight. Mario, thank you. VAD team, thank you guys very much for joining. Exasol, of course, thank you. And with that, if you have any questions, Mr. Fawad.
Yes.
Perfect.
Actually, this is a comment about the question that one of the participants asking about the cost. But before that, I want to know what's the difference between Exasol on-premise and the cloud services. Actually, I was the project manager once we implement Exasol. It was the first project for Exasol in Middle East in Banda retail company. And I was the project manager for this project. Actually, it's a fantastic tool, and in terms of cost, it's cost compared with any other tool giving in memory computing. We cannot compare it. Its cost is better than anyone else,
yeah.
And its performance is fantastic and amazing. But I just now hear that there is a cloud computing. What's the difference between both of them? And I think on premise it was something fantastic. Why we need to go to cloud?
So far, thank you very much, firstly, for the comments you've just made. So if I can take on that question in particular, obviously cloud is the future. Everybody's going down that route. There's a couple of options you could do. So with your on-premise license, you pay a set fee for the license. It's your license, obviously. But you can also do what is called bring your own license. So you could have your license deployed in any one of the 3 big players out there, and your cost is still your cost for the license. So you're just deploying it in a cloud environment. We obviously have our own Exasol model where there's compute costs. It's a full managed service, 24/7, 365. And we have something called follow the sun approach. So there's always somebody online to be able to support that. But there is the difference is that when you're taking your own license to any one of the 3 vendors, it's your license and you know exactly what that cost model is going forward.
I think the other way to look at it is from the data point of view as well. So if you as a company have got a cloud-based directive and you move into the cloud or already on the cloud, and all your data is sitting in, say, Amazon S3 storage, why would you push all that data back to an on-premise machine when you could just put Exasol on that same Amazon cloud environment and ingest it, in that same environment? So it's kind of, move your system where your data is. You might have privacy issues, if you're a bank or a pharmaceutical company and you don't want your data to go in the cloud or offsite, then that's your reason for going for your on-premise solution. Whichever of the options you choose, you're getting the same performance, you're getting the same ramp up in terms of all the other options out there. And like you say, the cost is so much better compared to the alternatives and predictable. Does that make sense?
It does, Graham. Just to add to it, it's that big factor of choice as well, right? And that sort of lock-in, right, guys? It gives you the flexibility to scale out, scale back, dependent. And again, back to that data point, legislation within region is all key. GDPR rules from a standard perspective. All of these elements are again linked to why Exasol is saying have choice, and you make the decision based on your data.
Yeah. So there's nothing stopping you starting on premise and moving to the cloud. It's a very straightforward, simple process to migrate an Exasol instance, from on premise to cloud or to the Exacloud, forwards or backwards. We do have companies that are that started in the cloud and are now beginning to shift back towards an on-premise solution. For whatever reason,
Yes.
There are many reasons, but it's flexibility and peace of mind. You buy that license, you can have it anywhere you want.
I think maybe the environment is not ready. Yeah, the future is for cloud, but maybe the environment and other companies are not ready for cloud. For example, I'll give you an example. Now our ERP is Oracle Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
Oracle Fusion is database is a black box. It's inaccessible.
Yeah.
So if we choose to work with Exasol, I don't think that it will be effective because we cannot access the database, Fusion database. Is there a solution for this?
Yeah, there will be extractors for Infusion that will, allow you to take the data out and put it into an Exasol, and that would make it visible and available. And that's exactly why Adidas was pulling data out of the SAP ERP. It's exactly the same situation. I think with SAP there was a cost involved if you wanted to, extract and build a data warehouse that wasn't in a SAP-based tool. But that cost was,
Oracle is giving the same solution. They have autonomous data warehouse, a cloud data warehouse, but it's costly. So their cost is unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a good use case maybe for Rob and Keishan to follow up with. You know, see what the options are for extraction of data from that Oracle environment. I mean, Oracle, even SAP understands that Oracle is now not the way to go, even for your ERP. You know, they're replacing with HANA, and soon SAP will be Oracle free. So, but they've just moved into the same world. That HANA environment is also pretty much a black box, and you still have to extract from that HANA box into a solution like Exasol to actually give real access and real visibility and real analytical capability. Otherwise, you're always going to be limited to what Oracle or SAP or whoever it is gives you out of the box, which is never enough.
Actually,
there's something on the roadmap for in terms of the kind of work that we're doing with Oracle at the moment. So there's certainly stuff on the roadmap in terms of helping customers extract that data easier, because there are some companies, particularly across my territory, which is Middle East and Africa, where we find Oracle has such a large footprint, where we're starting to see more and more scenarios like this at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're not saying get rid of your Oracle environment at all. We're just saying open up your data to everyone that wants it and needs it.
Yes.
By putting it in an analytical database.
Actually, what I found that once we are going to cloud, we expect that it will give us more options, but actually, what I found that it gives us much less options.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan of cloud. I like to be all my tools on premise, under my control, accessible, fully accessible. This is what we need to access everything.
Which is why again, Exasol is a good option, because it's the only analytical database that has that flexibility to be on-premise or in cloud or that managed type service and get the same performance. I mean, the other big one, Snowflake, is...
I agree. I fully agree. After I use Exasol for around 2 years, I fully agree.
Yeah,
I fully agree with this. I'm a very big fan for Exasol, actually.
That's good to know. I always say it's one of those things. Seeing is believing in the first place. So using is believing. When we talk about the performance, once you've used it, you can't go back. Seeing it is, you will become an evangelist, because it's just so much better than everything else that's out there.
I tried. Sorry for interruption. Sorry.
Go on.
I tried for affinity query, the relationship between items. It was taking on SQL Server, taking for 2 items for 10 branches, is taking around 20 hours. The query.
Mm-hmm.
In Exasol, it's less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's stunning. In some situations, it really is stunning, but in every situation, it's faster.
Yes.
Yeah. And I always say it was like a dishwasher. I wouldn't buy a dishwasher 10 years ago, but then I bought one, and I would never go back. And then it's just there, and you just use it as if it's a common object. You get to the point where if your SQL query doesn't come back in 5-10 seconds, you can't understand why. And yet there's so many companies and analysts and engineers out there that are still happy to wait an hour, 20 hours in your case, for something to work. I mean, what do you do in that 20 hours? You just, I don't know. I don't understand that mentality of it's okay for a query to take an hour. It's not okay. You're especially in this day and age, every single one of us needs to be 100% productive all the time.
Yes.
I've said too much. I'll shut up.
Yeah.
That was good. It was nice comments. Good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we had a final
Thank
question
you.
that came in from Mr. Raj, but he's unfortunately just had to drop the call. But Graham, if you can just respond to this, do you have any build and analysis, especially for customer data?
I could sell you the patent to the to what we did at Adidas, but then I'd have to kill you. There is no out-of-the-box solution yet. It's something that's actually being talked about at Exasol in terms of building common data models, common vertical models for businesses, but it's not something that we have available. And every company is so different. It's very difficult to actually build something that would be generic and still useful, to be honest.
Correct. Those libraries would become so big over such a short period of time. It's almost impossible to build a model. You can try and get some generic models out there for specific verticals or verticalized, but to try and do something very specific is very, very difficult. And again, even with the generic models, there's going to be so many different nuances to each organization. You'll find it very difficult to be able to do that. So,
I mean, if you're talking about analytics, pure analytics, then you can run Python scripts, R scripts, all the standard libraries. You can access those and run them directly in SQL in Exasol as a user-defined function. So you just call it like an SQL function. So that opens up that whole world of analytics directly in the database and directly on the data. Which gives you that access to the volume and to use volume data rather than, typical tool like Data Robot that extracts a set of test data, maybe 1,000, 10,000 records, do your modeling, do your testing and training, and then operationalize the results. You can do all that directly in Exasol and do it on 1 million records, 10 million records, scale it up a bit. So from that sense, you do have access to the world's standard analytical libraries, if you like. It's not the data model itself, but at least it's the libraries.
All right, if we have one final question or comments, if anyone wants to share. If not, we have run a couple of minutes over time. So Mr. Azim.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was late in joining the meeting this session because I was having some other commitment. Sorry for that. And I was watching you for almost half an hour. I'm heading the IT of Al Rawabi Dairy Company. We're a leading dairy company in the UAE and Oman and Qatar. So here I have one question here that we are working on SAP. I'm not a big fan. I'm in favor of Mr. Fuad, on having everything on cloud, not on cloud, on premise. Okay, but again. Yeah. But again, when we implemented SAP in 2018, we had to have with SAP Cloud, we have gone there, but it's an on-premise solution hosted in SAP's cloud. Okay. Now here I have a challenge. We have BI tools like ClickView, ClickSense. At the same time, we have business objects as well. Now I just want to understand from you, Mr. Graham, with your experience, currently the problem is that the users, when they run the reports on mainly the financial reports, P&L, balance sheet, and the profitability report, it directly hits to the database, HANA database. It's Suite on HANA, not S4 HANA, but Suite on HANA. Anyhow, HANA database is there. So users can run the reports. A lot of other users start complaining that they're not able to use the system because it's directly fetching the data from the production database. So now my point from you is, do you still think that whether it is outdated or we can still go with BW, or what is your recommendation for us to think about making the reports faster at the same time without affecting the performance of the transactions, what is being fed by the users?
My recommendation is do exactly what Adidas did. Demote your HANA system to being a pure ETL tool, because that's all it is really. That BW environment within HANA, that's your ETL tool to get the data out of the real ERP side of it, perhaps do your first initial cleaning up and data modeling there, and then pass it on to a tool like Exasol. And that's exactly what Adidas still do.
Sorry, we have 500,000 records getting into the system on a daily basis, because sales transactions are huge. So 500,000 records get into the database on a daily basis. So it really makes it very challenging to have comparison reports more than 2 years. And when we run such kind of reports, hell, I mean, complete users start crying, saying that this is our we are not able to pass the transaction. So do you think that using ETL and BW is the right solution?
Well, it's the cheaper solution, perhaps, because it's that SAP lock-in. If you've got it there already, I would maybe continue to use it, but only for the collection of data out on a daily basis. So it does that, change management on a daily basis, takes the delta, manages that piece, and then, like I said, shift the results straight into the analytical database for actual usage. The alternative is to get rid of that HANA environment completely, but you'll still need a tool to manage the delta on a daily basis. You'll still need some kind of ETL. You could do that in Exasol as well. It'll be a lot quicker than it is in HANA at the moment, for sure. But that's a bigger change for you. You'd have to commit to that, and it would be like a parallel project over 6 months or a year, perhaps. Whereas, if you're locked into your SAP environment now, it might be easier just to keep going with that. But to reduce don't rely on it for anything other than that initial delta management, and then shift on to Exasol. And that's still what Adidas does. They can't get rid of it, or let's say they don't want to take the risk of getting rid of it, because there's so much business logic in that ETL layer that's built up over 10 years or 15 years. To rebuild that from scratch is a big undertaking. Maybe at the point where you decide to shift to S3 HANA as your ERP, that's the point to really consider getting rid of your existing HANA. Yeah.
What is the replacement of HANA in this case?
It would be direct to Exasol or a similar tool with using an Informatica or some ETL tool in the middle.
Got it. Thank you.
And that will come because at some point S3 HANA will be the only option you've got. 2026, I think it is.
Yeah, 2026.
Yeah. Where your current system will die.
Thank you. I appreciate if someone can just type into the comment box about the name, what exactly you're referring to. Excel, what is that?
Exasol is the
Exasol. Okay, fine.
The analytical database. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Azim, thank you for your comment and question. If we have any other questions or comments, please forward them to our speakers. I want to thank everybody again. Graham, thank you so much. There was definitely a lot of discussion today, so thank you so much. And we will be sharing your presentation, correct?
Yep, I'll pass it on, yeah. Yep.
Perfect, yes. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for sharing your morning and a little bit of your afternoon with us. We will be in touch. And again, thank you so much for everyone.
Will you share the presentation in email?
Yes, we will.
That's good.
Yes. So yes, be on the lookout for that. Thank you again, everyone, so much. Graham, thank you. Rob, Kishan, thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.